I created the Stable formula and trademarked it probably around about 10 years ago now. And what I was finding was I was working at that point mainly one-to-one with clients. And I found that no matter what size that business was, whether it was a solo operator or a chain of salons, that there were certain things that needed to be put in place and in a certain order. So what was ended up doing was practically walking everyone through the same kind of framework that I've now trademarked. So once it was at that point, I didn't actually realise that I had quite a unique formula. Once I say we put it into place, now it works for any size business, and it just works and makes a business so that it's, to me, a business should be scalable and saleable at any time. And once someone has put and implemented the Stable business formula into their business, they can literally have the freedom of choice in their business of how much or how little they want to work in that business. So everyone always asks what Stable stands for. So if I'm explaining about a business, I always look at it as similar to a tabletop, so that you have got a business which, and I always like to say, just imagine that this business has got lots of money on the tabletop. Most businesses are out of balance in at least one area, which means that tabletop is on a slant and there's money running out. So quite often, so if you look at 4 areas, you've got your cash, your clients, your assets and your team. Even if you were solo, you still have a team of accountants or other people around you supporting you. And I always imagine you've got your business owner in the middle, you in the middle, trying to keep this all in balance. So you have businesses where they have got too many staff, not enough clients, money's running out. Or you can have too much money in a business, not enough investment in equipment, money's running out. So it's finding that balance across all. So I always say, like, the legs underneath the business are what I say are like the stable part, the foundations. So once you have systems in place, which is the S, you have trust in all of those areas. The business is adaptable in all of those areas. I always like to say you need to have a plan B and C, and that was no more, it came about rather than when we went into lockdown. You know, having a plan B and plan C was so important then. So you've got systems, trusted, adaptability, branding is the B, linked, who you're actually working with, and then education in all of those areas. Once you've got those foundation legs on your tabletop, keeps it in balance, you can then step out the middle of your business, jump around in it, go on holiday, and it'll all still operate fine because you've got it all set in stone underneath. Using the Stable business formula, I'd say I've probably worked with, I'm not quite sure how many 100 businesses have gone through the program now. It's taken businesses from originally when I first founded and brought her into the business, the beauty business world, Stable. At that point, it was normally when someone had got their business into a bit of a pickle. I'd get called in when things weren't going right in the business, and putting the formula into a business, normally within a matter of weeks, we could transform that business from being underperforming, demotivated team to being, well, if we use one example, there's a business I've worked with who I still work with now, went from a demotivated team, underperforming, the treatments were all out of sync, there was offers all over in the business. It took us 6 weeks to take all of that out, turned around. Now, 10, 12 years later, that business still runs with the same team, highly motivated, with the most amazing owner who had bought that business originally. The business runs perfectly. It is hugely profitable. It's grown. It's just the most amazing, beautiful business, and it aligns with what that owner wants, and the team all feel part. And yeah, so it's just, once you've got that formula in your business, and it doesn't take a long time. When I very first stepped out of my business, I've had my business 38 years now, and we are still in a small town. We are 14 miles from 2 cities, so we're just a small town. When we won UK Salon of the Year, I really thought we'd cracked it. It was the first time a UK salon had won in a small town, had won against all of like the big city salon names out there. And at the time we also had a team of 12. Everything was absolutely fantastic. I thought I had just cracked it. So the idea was that I would step out the business. And I just thought that was going to be easy. So when I did, I found very quickly that the business wasn't sustainable without me being there. So I jumped back in again. At the same time, I was very, very fortunate in that I met a business mentor who does mergers and acquisitions with businesses. I'd always been fascinated about how you could have 2 businesses and them look identical on the surface, one be doing phenomenally well and one crumbling underneath. And when I spoke to him, he at that point, and still does, buys businesses that are underperforming, buys them for £1, turns them around, sells them for sometimes millions. And at that time, I thought, right, what I'll do is, so I stepped back into the business and I thought, right, I'll learn from this business mentor. At the same time, I had this ambition, instead of stepping out, what I would do is have the chain of lovely salons and buy all these underperforming salons. Instead, what happened was, what I learned was the stable, what I then made into the stable business formula, all of the things that I was learning that you put into a business to turn it around fast and to make hugely profitable, I then put into my business, and then realised that formula would work in any other salon business. So I then put all of the changes of the stable formula into my business, stepped out, and then instead of taking over salons which were underperforming, I then got to love helping them transform their business. So instead of ending up with a chain of salons, I've still got my business, which I successfully stepped out of now 17 years ago. At the same time, started to help and turn around other businesses. And that is how I used the stable business formula in my business, but then to help create great businesses and make them perform so well.